guys, welcome back to my channel. Here is the long promised Vamptober, all vamp, all the time, all my vampire recommendations and what I don't recommend video. So I was thinking about this for a long time and I had a plan to do several more books, finish them up and add them into this video. Alas, I am not able to do that since I got sick and have just not been able to read like I had planned to. So I am going to give you the recommendations I have now, and then if I feel that those books are good, I will add them into their own, review later. But for now, I'm going to recommend some classics, some urban fantasies, some modern takes, all the vampire lore that you could possibly wish for, all right here. Also, I will give you what I think is by far the most superior vampire series ever created. Forget your Vampire Diaries, forget your Twilight movies, like this is it, in my opinion. If I say anything negative about a vampire show, movie, whatever, book that you love, this is just my opinion. So let me get to that. I will first recommend Carmilla, which I talked about in my weekly reading update, and is obviously a classic vampire novel, one of the first, and is about a female vampire that gets these families to basically take her in. She seems to kind of scope them out and then choose a victim and then go and live with them and slowly kill this person. It's like a very horror take on vampirism that I wasn't really expecting from these older books. But I really did appreciate the whole storytelling and the way that the book was written. I think it was good. And obviously having a female vampire, she's going to hunt differently. She's going to have this kind of like way more sneaky side of hiding her vampirism and the fact that she's killing all these other women, which she gets away with for a while. So it seems that she can, like the whole idea of a vampire bloodlust being something that like they just can't control is much more seemingly an Anne Rice, like later development. Whereas Carmilla can slowly kill people over time. She doesn't need to eat someone in one, evening. But she definitely seems to savor these victims that she has where she lives with them. Other people die much more quickly, but the ones that she lives with, she seems to keep alive longer, and that's kind of like, her enjoyment of her meal. So that's Carmilla. I think if you like classic vampire stories at all, definitely check it out. It's worth reading. Okay, so next we have the original Dracula, and I love this book. I feel like it's really well written. I like the characters, and it's just so well done. I really like how you have the different like journal entries and letters. That's kind of how the story is being told. I also think that the difference between Carmilla versus Dracula is going to be, like I said in my previous video, the characterization. You have much better characterization in this than in Carmilla. You're going to have more characters and you're going to have like, about them and their motivations. So also in older vampire, style and lore, Dracula doesn't seem to need to kill these people out of like this crazy bloodlust. Like with Lucy, I guess this is a minor spoiler. With Lucy, he is slowly killing her over time. And at the end, then, she becomes a vampire. So it's like a slow, they're trying to save her. They're giving her blood transfusions. I don't know how that would have worked back then, but it's like when they're describing it in the book, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. They can just line up all these people and just like stick one like needle into them and then into her and this blood passes over, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Dracula isn't like filled with this bloodlust. There does seem to be much more supernatural powers given to Dracula than Carmilla, as far as like being able to shapeshift, being able to kind of mind control and put people in this hypnotic, kind of state. But this is, to me, one of the best vampire novels ever written, and I would definitely recommend reading it. Okay, so I'm going to controversial pick because I actually don't like this series anymore. I loved it when I was younger, but I feel that you must read it. And maybe because I don't like to suffer alone. My husband's currently reading it. But Twilight by Stephenie Meyer is just, for better or worse, it has contributed so much to how modern vampire books are written that I just feel that you must read it. And I'm going to say if you like vampire books, you should read it, even if it's just for the laughs, because I laughed a lot in this when I read it again as an adult. And it's just the classic love story between Bella and Edward is something. I will say, if you are looking for a healthy relationship, this is not the book for you. If you are looking for, you know, a respectful, you know, courtship between two mature individuals, no, this is not for you. This is teen angst, teen decision-making, gaslighting, yeah, at its finest. And I will just say that it is gloriously awful in the best of ways. I don't know how else to describe it. I feel the same way about the movies. I have no desire to really like finish them. I stopped after the third one. I saw the first three in theaters. I was committed, okay? But I just couldn't. I had to eventually just let myself off with those movies because I didn't like how bad they were. Obviously the acting is terrible. Like, sorry, it's not anyone's fault. It's just what it is. I mean, it's some people's fault, but not blaming the actors. You know, they're going off of a script that was written for them and they're doing, I'm sure, the best they could. But if you're unfamiliar with the storyline, Bella Swan moves to Forks, Washington, where she meets Edward Cullen and his family of, you know, siblings that are all adopted and are all beautiful, pale, beautiful, gorgeous individuals. And she becomes fascinated instantly. And he seems very wary of her, very uninterested, like very disgusted by her at one point. And for some reason, this fascinates Bella to the point where she very quickly has a very insta-love, you know, relationship with him and learns that he is in fact a vampire, a sparkly vampire, because vampire skin sparkles in the sun, and that's why they have to live in an area like Washington where there's a lot of rain and a lot of overcast days. So if you're in the mood for some laughs, some, you know, this is how far we've come. I mean, I look at this as like, read it. If you enjoy it, if it's your guilty pleasure, like, good for you. Because this is, like I said, for better or worse, shaped vampire books forever. There are so many ripoffs of Twilight, it's not even funny. I could name My Blood Approves by Amanda Hawking, I believe. She has a whole series that is very much a ripoff of Twilight. And I'm not trying to be like down on any authors that have ripped off Twilight. If you've done it better, okay. A lot of books that got published were originally fan fiction of Twilight. So, you know, 50 Shades of Grey has Twilight to thank, in case you didn't know. Okay, so my last recommendation for books is going to be the Hall of Blood and Mercy trilogy by K.M. Shea. This is going to be an urban fantasy, and it is absolutely, in my opinion, amazing. I love the characters, and this is going to be a world in which vampires, wizards, werewolves, and fae all coexist, kind of, you know, with differing levels of political power. And we start out with Hazel, who is in fact a wizard, and she has just been elevated to the head of the wizard house. Basically, she's in charge of her own, there's different houses of wizards, and she's the last in her line. Her parents died and she takes over, but is immediately part of, there's a coup to take over her spot. So she's a very underpowered wizard and needs to flee to safety, which she can only find with the vampires led by Killian Drake, who is the head of the vampire family. So she goes to him and basically makes a deal to get sanctuary from him. And their relationship is great. Killian Drake is a great vampire character. I love that. I will say the thing that I think K.M. Shea did best with this character is not making him too nice. And I will say that it's like he has a very calculating mind, and even through all of the book series, she doesn't change him to the point where you're like, oh, you know, he's so good now because he's in love, or he's, you know, has a relationship with Hazel, which is obvious, you know, from the very beginning. So I think it's definitely worth reading. I think the series is super fun. It has very good characters. Obviously, Hazel is going to have this kind of like family relationship with these vampires, and all of the characters are very well written. And then you're going to have more of a, you know, the political intrigue and insights into the, you know, magical world and the relationships between the different, you know, magical beings. And I think it's super fun. So I highly recommend the Hall of Blood and Mercy series by Shea. Okay, so lastly, in my opinion, this is the best vampire show ever made, and I have seen, obviously, the first 3 Twilight movies. It ain't it. And I watched the full first season of Vampire Diaries, and also was not for me. But this series, Scholar Who Walks the Night, is a Kdrama, and it is amazing. I love the characters, I love the story, I love the like tone. It's definitely closer to horror than not. So if you wanted something like more kind of campy and silly, Twilight is definitely more in line with that. If you want something more like geared towards teenagers, I would say Vampire Diaries. You know, it's very like CW. I think it is CW, but I mean, it feels very CW. So I love The Scholar That Walks the Night. It has hot vampires and evil vampires, which is what I think you need. Vampires in this world are very evil. There's one that you meet obviously in the beginning, and he is very closely aligned to the throne. He has made a deal with the government, the emperor, and he is like kind of the power behind the throne. And it's so good and so well written. The characters are amazing. There's nobody, like I said, it's very cast. There's nobody that feels like they're not important as a character. And you have a vampire that is created who's going to be kind of going against this very powerful vampire that's aligned to the royal family. And so that's how it kind of plays out. There's the female character is a writer who through circumstances gets involved with the vampire that's trying to take down the evil vampire. And I know it sounds a little convoluted, but it's super good. The romance is probably the weaker part of this, only in that the main female character seems quite young, but it's not that her acting is bad or anything. I just feel like if you're looking at it, you might be like, well, maybe not. Maybe she's a little young for that guy. But it has some of the like best vampires I think ever made for TV. So I'll just put here, yeah, this is what vampires should be like. And I think that it's definitely worth watching. Like I said, there's quite a lot of gore. So if you're not interested in that, they're definitely not hiding the fact that vampires basically just tear throats out. So that's in there. Also, there's quite horrific things that happen. The evil vampire is doing very dark, like evil things. And I think that's what leads to him being such a great villain, such a great character, that you hate him, but also love him. You love to hate him. And I'm a fan of villains, especially very well done villains and hot villains. So check it out. It's super good. If you've seen it, or if you have any vampire show recommendations, put them down below. Let me know what vampire book you think is the very best. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.